Pause. What you are about to watch is the final play of the 2018 College Football National Championship. The two teams that are competing for the right to call themselves champion are the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs. On one side, you have Alabama, a team that is no stranger to winning championships, and as a matter of fact, to this point, has won 16 national championships and is looking for their 6th under head coach Nick Saban. And on the other side, you have the Georgia Bulldogs, a team that many have considered very good, but not quite elite until now. They are head coached by former Nick Saban assistant and University of Georgia alumni Kirby Smart. Georgia is seeking their 3rd national championship and first since 1980, almost 38 years ago to the day. While Kirby Smart looks to become the first former Saban assistant to beat his former boss, who has a record of 28 wins and 0 losses against his former assistants. By the end of the 4th quarter, the game was tied 20-20, and on the first drive of overtime, the Bulldogs kicked a field goal to raise the score 23-20. Alabama, on the other hand, has just taken a massive sack, putting them at 2nd and 26. Bama is left reeling, and all Georgia has to do is prevent them from scoring, and they win the game. But Saban would not be denied.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins! The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
To say that people were stunned would be a massive understatement.
Second into how in the hell? Oh my
God. What's wrong with you now, man? I'm done with football, man. I'm done with it.
If you're an Alabama fan and you're happy about the win and the championship, I'm not necessarily saying you're a bad person, but if you're happy about it, the way you won, you're probably a bad person.
I'm done with football,
Man, y'all, this happen to y'all all the time, man.
bro.
This happen to y'all all the time, man.
This ain't the time. This ain't the time, bro.
This was the first time in 38 years that the Georgia Bulldogs had ever been to a national championship. In just his 2nd year, Kirby Smart had taken a team from an 8-5 record all the way to the big one. People were shocked, upset, frankly pissed, and most of all, afraid of the thought that they would have to wait forever for another shot at a national title. But football works in odd ways. So to understand what the future holds for the Bulldogs, let's go back in time. To understand how hard it is to win a national title, you have to understand how college football has evolved over the years. Firstly, to even have a chance to get to the national title game, you need to have a very good record with few losses, typically with no more than 2, and they need to come against some pretty quality opponents. Secondly, while it isn't necessarily required, it helps if you end the regular season as your conference champion. To do that, however, you first need to have the best record in whatever division of your conference that you play in, then play the other division's champion in the conference title game, and win. Lastly, you have to hope and pray that your performance is graded highly enough to be ranked within the top 25 teams, and with only the top 4 teams being selected to the playoffs, where you must win your playoff game, and then, and only then, do you get the right to even play for a national championship. At least, this is how it's been done since 2014. You see, before 2014, there was no playoff system, meaning that only the top 2 teams were selected to play for the title. For Georgia, their last championship came in 1980, where they were able to run the table, winning every game on their schedule, winning the SEC, which just back then meant having the best record, beating Notre Dame 17-10 behind Heisman winner and now political candidate Herschel Walker. But Georgia was still a very good program, so why did it take so long for them to play for another title? Well, to understand that, you need to understand the nature of the SEC.
Urban, you've coached in the SEC. You've lived in the SEC. And it seems like there's one word out there that kind of defines the separation that the SEC has from the Big Ten and the other Power 5 conferences. What is that one word?
Well, the word's attitude.
The SEC, or the Southeastern Conference, is statistically the best conference in all of college football. And I don't just say that because Georgia plays here, but because it's an actual fact. The SEC has a total of 286 win to 223 record against every Power 5 conference since 1998. Since 2000, they've had 7 number 1 overall NFL draft picks. The next closest conference, the Big 12, has 3. Since 1970, the SEC has averaged 50 players taken per year in the NFL draft. The SEC has won 43 national titles dating back to 1933. No other conference has anywhere near that many. The number of champions and the NFL draft picks feeds directly into recruiting, as the best recruits typically have the best odds of going pro when playing for the best teams, who, historically, just so happen to be in the SEC. Better players means better coaches, means better recruits, means better play, means more fierce competition than any other conference. All of this, with some of the most heated rivalries, culminates into the hardest conference to both play and win in. So how does Georgia fit into this? Georgia, being a founding member of the SEC, has a record of 438 wins, 261 losses, and 24 tie record versus the rest of the SEC. With winning records against big-time rivalries and historical powerhouses like Tennessee, Florida, Auburn, and even having some fairly good records against newcomers to the SEC like Missouri, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. As a matter of fact, the only teams that UGA doesn't have a winning record against are Texas, LSU, and of course, Alabama. But something doesn't quite add up. If Georgia has had winning records against most of the SEC for most of its existence, then why has it taken 38 years to win a national championship? Well, in the words of Kirby Smart,
there's nothing easy about the SEC.
Despite going a perfect 12-0 in 1980, Georgia would lose at least one game every year after, and while only having 4 losing records since, the other team's rise to prominence would always seem to halt the Bulldogs in their tracks. Just 1 year later in 1981 saw them lose to the eventual national champions in Clemson. The 90s saw them lose every matchup against Florida until 1997, where they promptly lost the next 6 games against the Gators throughout the 2000s by the hands of Tim Tebow and Urban Meyer. 2001 would see the hire of Mark Richt as head coach, and while the team certainly improved under his leadership, he was never quite able to run the table and get over the hump into a championship. 2010 would start off strong until quickly falling apart, with the nail in the coffin being the crushing loss against the eventual national champions Auburn Tigers, led by Cam Newton. This would be Mark Richt's worst record as a head coach. If Richt was going to bring a championship home, 2012 was his best year to do it. Junior quarterback Aaron Murray finished the regular season with his best statistical year he ever had at Georgia. They were 12-0 and ranked number 3 while facing off against the number 2 Alabama Crimson Tide. Whoever won the SEC championship would face number 1 Notre Dame in the title. If Richt was going to win that title, he had one last game to get there. With 12 seconds left to go, Murray threw one last play. He completed the pass, but the receiver failed to get out of bounds to stop the clock. Time expired. Game over. Throughout this video, you may have noticed that there's one other team I've mentioned a lot, and I think it's time we finally talked a little bit more about them. The Alabama Crimson Tide, and Nick Saban, the Crimson King. Nick Saban is by far and away considered to be one of, if not the best head coaches in all of college football. As the head coach from LSU from 1999 to 2004, he immediately turned a program around that had just suffered multiple losing seasons, and even winning a national championship in 2003. After a brief stint as the head coach of the Dolphins in the NFL, he was named head coach for the Tide back in 2007, and he hasn't looked back since. In just his 3rd year as head coach, he took the Tide from a 7-6 in 2007 to a perfect 14-0 en route to his 2nd national championship. And he wouldn't slow down from there, winning national titles in 2011, 2012, the only team since Nebraska in 1994 and 1995 to do so, by the way, and then continuing his streak of dominance by appearing in every single national title or playoff game until 2018. The streak only ended in 2019 when the LSU Super Team beat them at home. 26 unanimous and 19 consensus All-Americans, and a record of 285 wins, 69 losses, and 1 tie, which is the winningest record among all active head coaches. The Heisman Trophy, awarded to the most outstanding player in any given season, has been won by players coached by Nick Saban 4 times. Mark Ingram in 2009, Derrick Henry in 2015, Devontae Smith in 2020, and one more we'll talk about later. Needless to say, the Crimson King isn't anyone to be f***ed with. A large part of Saban's success has been due to his extreme pass-heavy offense, and while any other team could hypothetically be able to plan against or coach against it, when you have generational teams year in and year out, it really doesn't matter when you're just better than everyone else. Going into the 2020 season was no different. Being led by 4-star quarterback Mac Jones and wide receivers such as Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and John Mechie, they look to be another monster unit. But this video isn't about them. It's about Georgia, so how are they doing? With the direction of offenses in college football being that of superstar quarterbacks, surely they would have something equally talented, right? Stetson Fleming Bennett IV. The 5'11", 3-star walk-on wasn't even highly rated as a quarterback when he walked on in 2018 as a freshman. Realizing that he wasn't going to get any playing time, he transferred to Jones Junior College in 2019, before earning a scholarship at Georgia again in 2020 due to a lack of quarterbacks and due to the room being so thin. After becoming the starter in the second half against Arkansas, he would lead the Dogs to a 3-0 record. All was well, until they entered the court of the Crimson King.
Because of a targeting call last week. Bennett across the middle, and we saw this last week. It's picked off.
Yes.
It hit an on-rushing lineman, and Aboigbe's got an interception. Has time. Deep middle. Ricocheted and intercepted. Malachi Moore coming back the other way. Still on his feet. At the 40. Out to the 40. The own 42. Bennett's in trouble. Got away momentarily. Throws on the run. And it's intercepted. Picked off in the secondary by Alabama. And it's Daniel Wright.
To say that people were upset was an understatement.
I don't even, man, how much can one person take? I mean, I'm running out of things to say after losing games for the same reason, in the same way, you know, time after time. 3 times in a row, the lead on Alabama at halftime, and 3 times in a row, we lose. This is a regular season game, and in theory, you know, Georgia could run the table and wind up in Atlanta in the SEC championship game. If that happens, I'll be on here the week before the game, you know, promising and guaranteeing you that Georgia's about to go out and win the game. But the reality, if I take the Homer shades off, if I take the Georgia fan part out of me, they don't have what it takes at quarterback.
Already losing a game meant no more room for error, and the blame was placed squarely on Stetson's shoulders. Throwing 3 INTs will do that. But not all was lost. After a bounce-back win against Kentucky, they had their annual rivalry against Florida, so how did Bennett do?
Bennett has time, and it's intercepted. Picked off by Kair Elam. Receivers to the left. Mathis flushed, has to just throw off his back foot and hope for a prayer, and he ended up throwing an interception to Sean Davis. And Davis coming back the other way. Davis weaving through traffic inside the 20.
And you had the feeling also, if not this year, when, right? With the quarterback problems that Georgia was having.
Mathis fires. This one is intercepted. And that'll ice it as Amari Burney, the outside linebacker, picks it off.
Absolutely outplayed. The amount of backlash Kirby Smart got for starting a no-name 5'11 walk-on would force his hand. With USC transfer JT Daniels finally healthy, Stetson was forced to ride the bench for the remainder of the season, and with 2 losses already, that meant that they weren't going to be playing for the SEC championship, let alone a national championship. But hopes of a championship in the future were not lost. Following a close win against Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl, a total of 14 starters decided to return for one more year, one more shot, one more go at the championship. And with absolute monsters like Jordan Davis, Trayvon Walker, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith on the defensive line, Nakobe Dean and Christopher Smith as lights-out linebackers, and Lewis Seen playing as a ball hawk safety, along with freshman Keely Ringo as a shutdown cornerback, this defense was poised to be a monstrous going into 2021, and with 5-star quarterback JT Daniels at the helm, maybe, just maybe, they could win it all. They would have no better opponent to prove it against than Clemson.
Hey guys, it's Taylor here with DCUnlock.com, and I've got a crazy Georgia fan. Yeah. I don't really know what's going on, so why don't you tell me?
This is the Dogs!
His own end zone. It's blocked! Touchdown, Georgia.
4th and 5. Ball at 6 here. Bennett, a little bit of pressure. He wants more than just a first down. He wants the end zone.
Has been massive for a team that came into the year with a little bit of a question at that position.
McKinnis' second punt. And it is blocked. Georgia with the block. A special team on the back of the end zone. Bennett, look at the time, look at the opportunity downfield, and look at the results.
That's how you get the respect.
They had finally done it. For the first time in program history, Stetson Bennett, after earning his starting role back, would lead the Dogs to a perfect 12-0 record. By this point, even if they lost the SEC championship, their record was so good and the quality of their opponents so high that they could get into the playoffs anyways. So who did they face in the SEC championship? Oh, god damn it. Once again, the Bulldogs would put up a great fight, but were yet again unable to turn the tide. But why? What were they missing? They had the talent, the coach, the game plan. What the hell were they missing? Honestly, I wish I could answer your question, but frankly, I'm unsure myself. Stetson played well, again, but just not good enough. Despite throwing 3 touchdowns, he would also throw 2 costly interceptions. Let's talk about Bryce Young. Bryce Young, in a lot of ways, is a mirror to Stetson Bennett. They're both shorter quarterbacks who played very well in high school, both attended very highly ranked SEC schools, but whereas Stetson had to walk on as quarterback, not even initially being offered a scholarship, Bryce was a nationally recruited player who no one had any doubts would start at Alabama. In many ways, the mirror extends out beyond just the 2 quarterbacks, and onto Georgia and Alabama as a whole. Both are being led by coaches that coach extremely well, recruit well, and play well. The only difference between them was that at every turn, the Tide would just somehow get the better of them. And it happened here, of course, but also happened in the 2018 SEC Championship, the 2018 title, and going back, Georgia had lost 7 games in a row to Alabama. The last time they won was in Saban's first year, and even then it took until overtime to do it. For Georgia, beating Bama would mean so much, snapping a 7-game losing streak, proving that they could go toe-to-toe with the Giants. For Kirby, it meant beating his former boss, and for Stetson, it meant proving everyone wrong and bringing home the championship for the first time in 41 years. When the final playoff rankings were announced, the Dogs beat Michigan in the Peach Bowl, and the Tide trounced Cincinnati. For everyone on the team, the program, the fan base, and the state as a whole, that meant one thing: a rematch. One more chance to turn the tide. This was it. One more chance to win it all. The game kicks off. Fierce defensive battle until 9:58 in the first quarter when Alabama kicker Will Reichard kicks a field goal to go up 0-3. On Georgia's next drive, Stetson Bennett is sacked and they fail to convert on first down. The score remains the same until 12:36 in the second quarter where, following a massive reception by George Pickens, the Dogs would kick a field goal to tie the game, 3-3. The Dogs would catch a massive break in 12:29 in the second. Bama star wide receiver Jamison Williams would go down with a torn ACL and would not return for the rest of the game. The Georgia defense would stop the drive and Bama would kick a field goal, 3-6. Alabama would get within Georgia's 6-yard line and ultimately fail to score a touchdown, resulting in another field goal, 3-9. Georgia would inch closer with 3:09 left in the half with another field goal, 6-9, and that's where the score would be going into halftime. A defensive struggle with one thing on everyone's mind. Can this Georgia defense stop this Bama offense? Can an immovable object stop an unstoppable force. After halftime, the Dogs would stop Bama early, with Christopher Smith picking off Bryce Young, although Georgia would ultimately fail to get any points out of this INT. Upon attempting a field goal, Georgia defensive lineman Jalen Carter would get a huge block on the kick, and the score remained at 6-9. Then comes the breaking point.
Cook makes a cut. He's got blazing speed. James Cook in a foot race. And the Tide track him down. They finally get...
UGA running back James Cook rips off a massive 38-yard run, and just 2 plays later, Zamir White would score the first touchdown for the Dogs, 13-9. Alabama would respond quickly, however, scoring another field goal, 13-12. One controversial fumble and roughing the passer call later, Bryce Young would throw a touchdown to tight end Slade Bolden. The Tide is up 13-18, but fail the 2-point conversion. Stetson Bennett would quickly respond, and thanks to a key block by James Cook, would throw a 40-yard pass touchdown to wide receiver Donnie Mitchell. Georgia leads 19-18, and on 3rd and 1 with only 3 minutes and 36 seconds left on the clock, Bennett threw another touchdown pass to tight end Brock Bowers, bringing the score up to 26-18. With just 1 minute and 7 seconds left in the game, on 3rd and 10, Alabama needs to score a touchdown and then a 2-point conversion to win the game. Pause. What you are watching is the final play of the 2022 National Championship game. The 2 teams that are competing for the right to call themselves champions are the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs. On one side, you have Alabama, a team that is no stranger to winning championships, and as a matter of fact, at this point, has won 18 national championships and is looking for their 8th under head coach Nick Saban. On the other side, you have the Georgia Bulldogs, a team that many have considered very good, but not quite elite until now. They are coached by former Nick Saban assistant and former University of Georgia alumni Kirby Smart. Georgia is seeking their 3rd national championship since 1980, almost 41 years ago to the day, while Kirby Smart looks to become the 2nd former Saban assistant to beat his former boss, who now has a record of 28-2 against his former assistants. At this point in the game, the score is up 26-18. In a lot of ways, it's looking very similar to the 2018 national championship, with Georgia winning in the final minutes and Alabama looking for a desperation score. We all know how it ended last time, heartbreak in the final minutes. They say those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And having watched this next play live, I think it's safe to say Georgia learned.
Launching downfield, underthrown and intercepted. Kaylee Ringo has an escort down the sidelines. All the way to the end zone. And Georgia is going to conquer the Crimson Tide.
The final score, 33-18. The Dogs conquered the Crimson Tide. They had finally done it after 41 years. Kirby Smart, a former Nick Saban assistant with a 5'11" walk-on from Blackshear, Georgia, had dethroned the king and finally reserved the right to call themselves champions.
Yeah, so what? They're not going back to back.
secondary fantastic there. Let's see if they do it again. Duggan gonna go down. Yeah, it was pretty good that time. Some state teams snap it back on 3rd and a mile. Duggan from the 2 will throw it all the way across the field. It's picked up by Bullardy. Bullard got it again. 32 seconds to go. Bennett to throw. Right angle. One-on-one coverage. And caught, I think. Yeah, touchdown, Mitchell. TCU 14-yard line. Bennett to throw. Off it to the right corner. There's McConkey. He got on it.
We don't have to.
It's a Stetson Bennett curtain call here.
Here we go. Bennett caps a career that began with no scholarship offer at Georgia. He'll leave with a legacy unlike anybody else in this school. Georgia Bulldogs bludgeoned their way to back-to-back. Glory, glory.
Back-to-back Nats. Perfection wears red and black tonight.